Hello malt mates, welcome to the Whisky Bothy, where I, your host, Ralphie, that's me, review whisky. And being situated in the Irish Sea, I have very good access to all sorts of Scotch whisky. And this is a very good example. And before I go any further, oh, the smell is coming out to meet me already. This is review number 1123. So welcome all you whisky curious. And here is a bottling you may not have seen before. This is a second batch of a heavily peated cask strength whisky from a very small farm distillery in the middle of Scotland in a place called Pitlochry. This is Edradour Distillery, and you more commonly see the 10-year-old and 12-year-old Edradours, which are both well worth exploring if you're into old school flavour. But when I saw this, I couldn't resist it, and I know, I'm fully aware that I have been indulging myself recently by reviewing particularly good whiskies which are not generally available because they're either single cask or very small batch. But before we go any further, malt mates, let me tell you, if you're an experienced Scotch whisky drinker, that is where the magic is at. There comes a point that you've got to look beyond the familiarity of mainstream brands who are pitching themselves at the high volume consumer market. And as a result of that, it's not in their interests to have too much flavour in the whisky because it might upset some of the consumers. It's not an issue to the small distilleries because, quite simply, they have a more meaningful, tangible connection with their customers. And you see this admirably displayed in local whisky clubs where brand ambassadors from these smaller distilleries and independent bottlers actually pop along, share some whisky and have a chat. It's just what happens. And also, you'll find the smaller distilleries and the independent bottlers tend to be the ones that show up with some enthusiasm at whisky festivals all around the world. So, have a think about it. And what I want you to think is, are these highly popular, recognisable big brands actually rounding off their flavour and sweetening up the experience in order not so much to appeal to the consumer, but to not frighten the consumer? You know, flip it round a wee bit. Look at things from a slightly different angle. There you have it. So let's get on with this one. This is from Edradour Distillery. You may recognise the shape of the bottle, it's quite distinctive. This is Ballachan, which is a denotion, the name they have for the heavily peated version. I like Edradour and I like Ballachan because it's a real old school, old world, industrial, heavy style of whisky. This is because they distill in small stills. They do not rush the distillation and they do not over filter either the wash going into the spirit or, importantly, the whisky when they put it, before they put it into the bottle. So you're getting full fat, so as to speak, whisky, proper whisky. Whisky with more gravity, more weight, and therefore more flavour, more substance and more character. It surprises me that a lot of people out there have not really fully understood this yet. But we know that that is changing, particularly here in 2026. So let's get on with this little banger. Nose. Highly aromatic and very phenolic. As phenolic as a young Bowmore. And this is 18 years old. So it's no spring chicken single malt. And yet the first, I think, impression I get off the nose is that the weight and influence of the peatiness is as dramatic and substantial as if it had been a 10-year-old. This is bottled at 57.8%. What does that tell you? It tells you after 18 years in a small assortment of casks, not a lot has been lost to Angel's share. Now, here's what you need to know. Whisky forensics. When you have weak, thin wood casks that are literally the cast-offs from the bourbon industry and not of great quality because they've been only constructed as cheaply as possible for one maturation of American bourbon and then shifted off, usually disassembled casks, so you can get more into a crate on the cargo ship. What you have is, in poor quality casks, you have higher losses. Higher evaporational losses. You see, the lighter the actual wood used for the fabrication of casks, the less wood is actually in the casks. Because the wood is lighter, it's got less components, less cellulose, which is the main substance of giving wood its structure. And if there's less of that, there's less of everything else. When you have heavier casks of better quality, literally of thicker stave wood, there's more energy to come out the casks. How much more? Possibly, at times, 50% more. Think about it. Let's get back to this. Really enjoying the nose. I'm not rushing it, as you can see. That is natural colour. It's not stating it on the label. It should be making it absolutely clear. Maybe it states it on the carton that it came in, but that's the first thing I throw away and recycle under biofuel. So if there's any important information, it damn well needs to be on the label. The label is what counts, nowhere else. Taste. Oh. As intensely, phenolically peated as anything from Islay. This is 18 years old, has more cask influence, but the cask has in no way degenerated through oxidisation. Again, the clues in the bottling strength. It's a high bottling strength. Less oxidisation in the casks, more intact phenolic component delivery, because the phenolics in chemical chains, in actual structural makeup, are the longest chains in the whisky, which through oxidisation tend to break up over time, which is why you can buy 30 and 40-year-old Laphroaig or Ardbegs and be actually a little bit underwhelmed, a little bit disappointed, because the peatiness has really broken down too far and interfered with the integrity of expected delivery. I'm going to add some water to this. I'm getting some lovely rich barbecued smoky pineapple. I'm getting a lot of mint. I'm getting fresh ginger. I'm adding two 5 milliliter spoons of water. I know I can hear you. I can hear you through the recording device. Oh, Ralphie, too much. I was told by Tammy McSugarlyboogs that you never add water to the whisky because it's the strength the superstar master blender blended it at so as to give the perfect results. I hope you're past that absurd naivety, maltmates. If you do not add water, you do not get access to the flavour. End of, period. There you have it. Let's move on. Back to the nose here. Gentle roll, none of this shaking about like the experts do when they're on camera. And agitate, because that's just pure theatre. Just a nice gentle roll, take your time. Back to the nose. Increasingly herbaceous, slightly savoury, and that includes savoury herbs. sage, a little bit of rosemary, a little bit of thyme. You know, these combination of Italian herbs that you get in a proper, authentic pizza? That sort of range of herbaceousness. This is an absolute joy. The nose, the wood influence is so well balanced with the spirit. For the age, frankly, it's quite an event. Back to the flavour. We've tamed it down. A gentler arrival, more aromatic, spicy phenolics and peatiness, tangy and citrus, grapefruit rind. That pineapple's coming back in again. Baked pineapple. You know when you have a pineapple cake and you put sugar on the top of it and then you scorch it with a blowtorch? You get that aromatic pineapple smell. You're getting that. There's an apple note in there. Autumn russet or brown-skinned apples. There's a little mild banana note in the background. There is some soft, almost understated, gingery apricot going on. This is a very eventful single malt. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. You can see by the fill level. So, what mark am I going to give it? A malt mark? Well, I'd like to start by saying that I'm not going to give it 90 out of 100. Because if I did, with some retailers, the price would suddenly jump up considerably. And I really don't think that's fair on you, because you're buying the whiskey, and simply because I really, really enjoy something, I now know I can never give 90 out of 100 for anything ever again. Ever. It's a situation that's really pissed me off, big time. In fact, I was discussing it recently with some people in the industry, just to get their perspective, that's all. The savoury note, the sweet and sour and then some, the subdued, almost sooty bitterness in the background that keeps developing. After the arrival, this sustained medium development just keeps going and going and going, and then you get this billowing chimney smoke from coal fires and a bit of wood in it. You know, something traction engine, steam engine, old world stuff. And then the finish, you get this gentle, crisp tannins interlaced by some ginger honey and some fresh ginger, an assortment of gingers, a little bit of cardamom and a little bit of mace. And honestly, at the big end, once you've been around this for about an hour or so, you start to get a little bit of nutmeg popping in and out as the development continues. It's wonderful stuff. Let's give it a malt mark. There you go, 87 out of 100. If you pop back again, I want to give you some more information. And of course, as always, it's purely an opinion, only an opinion, about how distilleries revitalise fading, heavily peated whisky casks when the phenolics start to go downhill. And I'm not saying this is a condemnation of the industry. Frankly, I think the industry actually generally gets a lot of sympathy from me, because I see how much they're up against it because of the absolute commercial absurdity of the British commercial business environment and the outrageous burdens that distilleries have to cope with British administrative and governmental bureaucracy. It's deeply damaging. But I'll see you soon for review number 1123 Extras. See you there. Bye-bye.